So,
Before we get into the meat and drink of this particular latest outburst from Prince Harry, what was all the legal action about yesterday? It seemed like you were getting harassed by some lawyers. What was all that about?
yes. Well, I sent a tweet which said that um, Harry and Meghan are always saying you must be compassionate for those you know and those you don't know.
Oh yeah,
And I said I didn't think they were being very compassionate to Harry's grandmother, aged 95, who's just lost her husband.
no,
And an hour later, I got a text from lawyers in Germany who run the Twitter sort of legal side for Harry and Meghan to say there'd been a complaint about me and asked that I should be blocked from putting any more tweets. But actually, this tweet that I did doesn't come into those areas where they should be blocked.
right,
So I tweeted it again just to make
quite
sure
right.
that I was all right.
I must find it so that I can
Very
retweet it on your
interesting.
behalf.
It's very interesting because it wasn't aggressive towards them. It was just very straightforward. And if we're not allowed even to do that, it's a ridiculous way because they're trying to be much too controlling.
Well, the thing
They
is,
do
we
say
know
that
what we know
about compassion
about
sometimes.
the Prince Harry and Meghan is that they like to control the world around them, don't they? They like to have only nice things written about them, only pictures taken that they've approved, only words in newspapers and magazines and in books that they have said can be written about them because they don't want anything horrible written about them. And every time anybody does write something they don't like, they call racism or they call it cruel. I mean, they're not going to enjoy Piers Morgan's column in the Sun today.
No, they won't. No, absolutely not. I then tweeted another one, which I said that sometimes they like to be the victims and say that everybody's against them. And the rest of the time, they like to be very strong and tell everybody in the whole world
Mm.
what to do. That didn't get another one, but I'm quite surprised about that. I thought that was worse than
Yes.
their first one. But um,
But what I mean,
I,
this
I
this
mean,
late this latest request or threat, if you like, because it's more of a threat, isn't it, to sue Her Majesty's government, which in fact is tantamount to suing his own grandmother, I presume, to try and get the right to have these bodyguards, is so ridiculously pompous as to be laughable, isn't it?
Well, there's a sort of naivety about it, actually, because there's nothing to do with Buckingham Palace.
Mm.
It's to do with a special body that is part of the Home Office that investigates this. The point is that in 2020, when they decided to leave, the Queen, Prince Charles, and William told him that he would lose all the security that he has had. Does he realize that? And they understood about feeling nervous because he fought in Afghanistan. But he didn't care about that. He was off. Well, you can't then just come back and suddenly say, well, I'd like Metropolitan Police of the top quality to be there for me, not just when I go and do a visit, but 24 hours, which is absolutely
Mm.
ridiculous. What he could have done quite quietly, and which he could have easily found out, was that there is a lot of retired Metropolitan Police who are thoroughly approved of by the country that you can use. But he's making a huge fuss and I can't imagine that he didn't know that. The other thing is that the country won't let in a team of protectors for him. They turn up with guns. That's not going to be allowed. Harry wants them to know all about the MI5 and MI6 and what's going on. Very personal and important security for the country. And he wants it. Well, now they
Yeah.
won't be allowed in palaces, and he can't have it. He can't have it his own way. I also think that it's actually a form of blackmail because he's saying, "I want my children to know the country I belong to and to get to know everything about it, but I can't bring them if I don't have all this proper security."
Mm.
Well, I think that's a terrible thing to blackmail. And actually, those children are very small at the moment. Not to say that they shouldn't see their grandmother, great grandmother, and everybody else,
Mm.
but you can't use that as an example. I think it's very low grade. Very low grade.
Well, it is very low grade, but it's typical of what I would regard as the way that these two operate. Because no doubt she's been, poking him and saying, you've got to get us some bodyguards when we go back to the UK, so we can be treated as though we are the biggest stars that anyone's ever seen. She'd probably quite like there to be a 14-car motorcade taking them up and down the street whenever they go anywhere, because she obviously thinks that's how important she is. But they can't have it both ways, and also they don't have that kind of Metropolitan Police bodyguard activity while they live in America, which seems to me to be a far more dangerous place than anywhere that they could go in Britain.
Well, there's a lot of murders where they live now, which is quite interesting, but that doesn't seem to worry him. We've seen photos of him riding a bike with nobody behind him. But I think I don't quite agree with you, because I think Meghan absolutely doesn't want to come back. She didn't like the country. She hated the royal family, and she doesn't want to come back as the wife of number 6 in the line of the throne. She wants to be number 1 in everything, and she has to win. You can see the huge determination in this demand, and that's just not going to happen. So this is a wonderful excuse why she can't come, and what we will have to see is whether Harry's brave enough to come on his own next June, when it's the Platinum Jubilee celebrations.
Well, maybe he can come back like he did last time when he came back for the Diana statue, and then he left, didn't he, immediately before his grandmother's birthday, which I thought was awful.
He said that he was followed by a load of paparazzi, and that's why he had to get out, because he didn't have the security. He had security for Prince Philip's funeral because that they thought that could be a hotspot for anybody who wanted to take revenge. But so he had that for that specifically, but not for unveiling his mother's statue. I think they are all very mixed up about what they want. And what is very interesting is that the Harry I knew, he had a bit of a hard side, but he was compassionate and funny and loved people. And now he just seems very, very vindictive and spiteful. Now, if you are really happy, you've got a wife you adore, you've got 2 children, you've got a huge home with all these 16 bathrooms, even if now you don't like it and you want to change it. But how can you go on being so malicious? And particularly as he knows what the Queen suffered. He says he really likes her, he feels very strongly about her, and yet he's doing this because I suspect they've got to sort of win, and they've got to bring the monarchy down. I think that's the basis of it all.
Well, good luck with that. That's not going to happen. The other question, I suppose, that people do put up as a counterpoint to this is, well, if Prince Harry doesn't get it, why does Prince Andrew get it? But there is a difference, isn't there?
Well, yes, Prince Andrew would love to stay within the royal family and would love to take part in any event that he possibly could. He had hoped that in the 40th anniversary of the Falklands War, which is in April to June, that he could ease his way back. He wanted to go to the celebrations, but now he's not going to be allowed to. But there is discussion still about whether he deserved protection. But Harry and Meghan, well, Harry really, walked out. They didn't want to be part of the royal family anymore. They want to do absolutely what they want and earn loads of money using their royal names. We have seen that time and time and time again.
Right.
And that's very different from living in another country and doing that. But I suspect there will be some changes in keeping Andrew safe.
Well, I mean, it is a fascinating scenario, one which I'm sure we'll be talking about an awful lot more. Angela, thank you very much indeed. Angela Levin, author of Harry, a biography of a prince.